Hey guys, Justin here. I wanted to take a quick second and let you know about Growth Now Movement Live, coming to Reading, Pennsylvania, May 30th to June 1st. This event is going to feature some of my top guests like Fabio Viviani from America's Top Chef, best-selling author and future board expert Sarah Centrella, Albie Manzo from Real Housewives of New Jersey, and many, many more. This is going to be a game-changing event. It is truly going to be a day-long rock concert for entrepreneurs, forward thinkers, and people who are ready to take their life to the next level. So if that's you, head over to gnmlive.com and grab your tickets today because prices are going up soon. Again, go to gnmlive.com now to level up your life and truly create the life of your dreams. Can't wait to see you there. What is the secret to unlocking your full potential? What makes your idols any different than you? How do you become the person you've always wanted to be in life? This is where you get all of your questions answered. My name is Justin Shank, and I sit down with some of the most epic individuals who are changing the world with their actions in business and in life. We discuss how they did it, why they pushed themselves, and more importantly, how they were able to focus on continuous growth to achieve their dreams. Welcome to the Growth Now Movement. This week, I sit down with Lilian Garcia. For those of you who don't know Lilian, she is a multi-talented singer, songwriter, host, television personality, producer, and performer. This Spanish beauty first captured the hearts of millions as a WWE announcer and singer, best known for hosting the #1 rated television show Monday Night Raw. Over the past year, Lilian has been busy being the host and executive producer of her popular podcast, Chasing Glory, which has garnered millions of downloads and broken into the top 10 of iTunes several times. In addition to her podcast, Lilian is also currently working in the recording studio on new material. Guys, this interview is super exciting to me. What you don't know about me, maybe, is that I'm a massive WWE fan. I've been my whole life, and I got introduced to Lilian through a mutual friend, and this conversation over-delivered my expectations. We don't only talk about WWE, we talk about Lilian's desire for self-development and how that's really changed her life. We talk about her losing her child and how that affected her life, and so many other things that I think you guys are really going to enjoy this episode from a standpoint of knowing that you can level up even if you're afraid. She shares an amazing story about the first time she announced Monday Night Raw, and I think you guys are going to love it. Now, without further ado, let's get into the episode with Lilian Garcia. Lilian Garcia, welcome to the Growth Now Movement.
It's so great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited. It was something random. I think Sean Douglas posted something about you somewhere, and I messaged him and I was like, I want to interview Lilian. And he's like, let me see what I can do. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So growing up as a wrestling fan, you were a part of my life. Like I've seen you sing the national anthem live. I've seen all that stuff, right?
Oh, you saw it live.
Yeah, I saw it live. Yeah. So I've never done any of the big stuff because my family couldn't afford it. But when I was a kid, I'd get like either live events or like SmackDown and Raw if I got lucky or whatever the case may be. But wanted to chat because you're much more than just what somebody would say, a ring announcer, right? You've gone on to build this empire. You're a singer. Your podcast is killing it. You've done so much. Like, how does somebody even begin to do so much? But before we unpack all that, how did you even begin the journey into the WWE?
Well, that was through an audition. I actually was in New York City. I moved from South Carolina, where I went to school, and I got a job. I just grabbed the first thing that came to get me to New York to actually pay for the bills. I actually got a receptionist job, and then I was there for well over too long, like probably a year and a half, almost 2. And I was like, what am I doing? I have to go do something. Like I did not come to New York so that I could just be a receptionist. Nothing wrong with receptionist. Now that was actually, it was tougher than I thought it was going to be, but I just knew I wanted something more for myself. And I knew that entertainment was always part of my life, and I wanted that to continue to be my life. So I decided, and I did sing on the weekends and all with bands. So I still did that. But I was like, okay, what more? Because I've sang with 14-piece orchestras, I've sang with separate bands, I've sang in a Spanish restaurant, and I've been a receptionist. And so I decided to go ahead and go to acting school. And so I was thinking commercials, voiceover. People always said I had a good voice, and I used to do radio. So I'm like, all right, so let's experiment that. So I got into Wiesbaden, which was the school in New York. And from that, I took some courses and I started doing some voiceover work, and I started doing some TV commercials. I did a Lucille Roberts commercial. And then they actually had a course that if you completed a few of their classes, you could actually audition to be in this course to then audition for agents. So what it was, it's an amazing concept.
Yeah.
Basically, for 9 different weeks, you could be in front of an actual New York agent, because it's so hard to get agents.
Yeah.
So I love that the school did this. So I auditioned for that course. I got in. So for 9 weeks, I auditioned for a different agent every single week. Well, one of those agents, Oppenheim Christie, which I don't think they're even there anymore, but they took a real liking to me, and they're like, we definitely want to sign you. So I'm like, great. All right, let's do it. And from there, I continued doing voiceover work. Kind of more commercials. And then they actually called me and they said, there is an audition for the WWF. And I'm like, oh, the World Wildlife Fund? I'm like, no. World Wrestling Federation. I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, but I'm not a wrestler. And it goes, no. I know it's not for a wrestler, but it's for something else. We don't know exactly what it is, but we know it's not for a wrestler.
That's
and
scary.
I almost didn't do it.
You're like, where am I going? Where am I going with this?
Because I really wanted to sing, and I was, looking for acting, and I was like, wait, I feel like this is going into what I always felt like was a maybe a mistake, to go way too far to one side, right? And deviate. And I will never forget, though, he goes, look, just go. You never know. And if anything else, it's just good practice for another audition. I am so glad that I took his words and actually went.
I bet.
I went, and long story short, the audition felt great, and it was a callback, and I have to say that there is something that I always say. I always say, God, if it's meant to be, make it obvious. If it's not meant to be, make it obvious. So, and I also say, but let me do my best. I want to be able to turn it down. I don't want it to be where I didn't put my heart and soul in this because I didn't think maybe it was right for me. Let me just go in there and do my best, and then it'll all work out, right? Yeah. So sure enough, I did my best, and I knew it. I knew when I got done, I was like, oh, I just know they're going to offer this to me. And what was scary is I knew that they wanted a year's contract. And I was getting ready to sign with a music agent. And I was like, I don't know. Well, when they called me, they said, we'd like to try you out for 2 to 3 months, and you could quit at any time. So wow. I looked up and I said, God, you made it obvious. I've got nothing to lose here. If I go one time and I don't like it, that's it. Well, I show up. That was August 23rd of 1999. The show was in Iowa that day because obviously it traveled around. And I'll never forget, Michael Cole took me around all backstage and all in the ring. And I'm looking in the arena. I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. I mean, to see WWE and on the behind the scenes is something so powerful. Yeah. And it's wowing. It's wowing to see everybody setting up the ring and this and that. And you're like, oh my God. I mean, and I watched as a kid. So I was a fan. I watched Dad and I, that's how we bonded. Yeah. He took me and I saw Andre the Giant. I saw all these Ric Flair, right? So all of a sudden now I'm in the ring and I'm like, whoa, this is incredible. Now, granted, I don't know yet that I'm ring announcing that night.
That's so terrifying. Like from a bar in New York City to an arena in Iowa overnight. Mm-hmm. That's so terrifying.
Overnight. You got it. Biggest crowd ever, that I'd been in before. And I'm like, okay, I'm still going, but what exactly am I doing tonight? Or what am I doing here? Or am I just here to observe? Or I still didn't know. So I find out at 3:30 that afternoon that I'm going to be ring announcing that night from Monday Night Raw live, and I'm going to be replacing Howard Finkel, who is a legend.
Yeah, like the voice of Monday Night Raw at that
Right?
point. That's unreal.
So I literally said, wait, how do you do this job? And they're like, oh, you know what? We'll have Tony Chimmel sit down with you and tell you exactly what you're supposed to say. Okay. So I sat down with him at 3:30. I'm writing out all the notes. Now remember, ring announcing, you have to know, the person's town, weight, if they have a title, if the match is even a title. It's a lot of information that, I love the fact that ring announcers make it sound easy.
Yeah.
Through a lot of practice and all, but I had no idea what I was getting into. And so I'm like, oh, okay. I'm thinking the whole time, all right, no problem. Just write this all down, get it all down. So I wrote it all out. And then I go to, I'm rushing because I'm got 45 minutes to go get dressed. So I get dressed and they're like, okay, we're going to bring you to ringside. You're going to actually watch Tony Chimmel announce Sunday Night Heat, which was the show that aired right before Raw. You're going to watch him do that, which is 4 matches. So that was my training.
Wow.
That was it. I
Being
watched
thrown
him
to
do
the fire.
4 matches as I'm rewriting my cue cards because they're such scribble because I wrote everything so fast that I have to, I'm like, okay, I have to make sense of this so that I can read it right. So I'm rewriting my cue cards. I'm watching him do those 4 matches and I'm, more and more people like just coming in in the place. This is the Attitude Era. There was not one seat empty. This is sold out arena. And also the camera at the front used to have that lovely little red light that would pop on when it was on. Now they don't have that. But at the time, the red light was shining. So I'd look over there to the camera and I'm like, oh my God, that red light's going to be pointing at me. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, But I'm like, okay, but you can do this because you can read the card. Come on, everything's fine. You can read. That's all you'll have to do. So then 20 minutes before going live, as I'm, practicing or not, but reading my cards, Mark Gayton, who actually ring the bell, he would sit next to me. He looked at me and he goes, you can't use cue cards, right? And I looked at him and I said, this is a really bad time for a joke, right? And he's like, no, I'm not joking. Like the executive producer does not like cue cards because he does not want to make this boxing. Because in boxing, you always saw somebody with a cue card, right? And I'm like, wait, what? I watched as a kid, but I fell out of wrestling because once I went to college, that was it. It was all about college.
And you're probably like, I don't know any of these wrestlers. I don't know where I am. I don't realize how these fans have gotten rowdy overnight.
I don't know anybody, much less. So I don't know their name, much less I can't even identify. If somebody one of the wrestlers walked out, I wouldn't even know who they were at all. Nothing. Yeah. So I don't know their name. I don't know their weight. I don't know their town. I don't know what kind of match this is. I don't know any of the rules for the match. Like all this stuff is going through my head, right? When he's telling me that. Now, this is, like I said, this was 20 minutes before going live. And I had a complete, just almost meltdown. I have never been so terrified in my life than I was at that moment. I started hyperventilating, but I'm trying not to show them all of this. And on top of this, by the way, I had just gotten the day before I got back from the Dominican Republic. I was there performing for a few days and I had Montezuma's Revenge. So if nobody knows what Montezuma's Revenge, that is when you drink the water. When they say don't drink the water because you will get sick. Well, apparently I didn't drink the water, but I ate the vegetables, the fruit and the vegetables that were washed with the water. So therefore, I was so sick. I was so sick that they actually had to give me a shot before I left the Dominican Republic so I could make it home, because otherwise I was going to be, in their toilet the entire time, the entire trip. Right? So now here it is the next day. Now, when you get nervous, how your stomach is upside down. Well, now my stomach's already upside down from Montezuma's Revenge. Now add this to the mix.
Unreal.
So I finally, I was able, at 10 minutes till, I had a flashback. And the flashback was I saw myself when I was 9 years old. My mother, she had asked me, and I said okay, because I didn't know really what I was saying okay to. But she said, do you want to be in the swim team? And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I find out, here's a little caveat, is I don't know how to swim. So I'm joining the swim team, but I don't know how to swim.
Wow.
So it's not like you want swim lessons. No. You want to join the team?
Like competitive swimming. Hop in there.
Competitive swimming.
Yeah.
You got it. So the thing is, when you join at 9 years old, you have to swim 2 laps. In other words, 8 and under gets to swim 1 lap in competition. But once you're 9, that's it. It's 2 laps. So now I'm trying to learn how to swim. So I'm going to, all the coaching and all of that kind of stuff. But the part that I'm having a hard time with is the breathing.
Yeah.
Because if you've seen Michael Phelps, everybody breathes from the side when they're doing freestyle. So I'm breathing, but every time I'm breathing, I'm like breathing, just sucking in water.
I'm 34 and I still do that when I'm trying to swim. So,
I mean, because it's practice. It's practice. But I was like, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. Well, I competed. And when I competed, I did the 1 lap. I turn around and I'm halfway back. I'm almost back. And I'm on a relay, by the way. So I was like, with my team, and I'm almost back when sure enough, one of those times that I breathed by the side, I just took in so much water. I started choking, which made me stand up. And when you touch the bottom of the pool, that's it. You're disqualified. So I disqualified my team. It was the worst feeling ever. And, but then my team was so great. They were like encouraging me to come in so that I just remember crying in the middle of the pool, just stopping crying. But I remember everybody encouraging me and going, come on, you can do this. You can do this. And so I finished. I still got disqualified, but I finished. But what happened was, and then later on, I actually saw a girl. I just kept watching people on how are they doing this. And I watched a girl actually swimming, but she doggy paddled. Okay, so when she'd come up for air, she'd look up and grab her air like she'd doggy paddle, and then she'd start swimming again. And then and I was like, wait, why is she not being disqualified? And they're like, no, because you don't get disqualified for that. You get disqualified for touching the bottom. I'm like, oh my gosh, this whole time I'm sitting here trying to be Michael Phelps from the very beginning, right?
Yeah.
So what was great is I figured it out. From watching and observing and all of that, I figured it out. Well, I ended up swimming until I was 18. So I swam 9 years, and then I coached after that for 2 years.
Wow.
So I had that flashback of you didn't know what the hell you were doing when you joined the swim team, but you figured it out. And then fast forward to when I was in radio, that was a pure luck thing that I got into radio, and I was co-hosting morning show. And then they asked me, we really, really would like for you to do Christmas Eve. And we want you to run the board, like you'll have your own show. I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. But I don't know how to run the board. So will anybody be there to show me how to run the board? They're like, yeah. Frankie will be here. No worries. He'll go over everything with you. I'm like, okay. So I show up at Christmas Eve, and sure enough, Frankie's there. And I'm like, all right, Frankie, I'm here. Like, teach me how to run the board. Lil, I'm so sorry, but I got to go, man. There's something I forgot to get from my family, and everything's going to close in. I got to go. And I'm like, wait, what? And he leaves me. Now, this is a top 40 radio station. This is not a college radio station. This is a top 40 radio station, live on the air, Christmas Eve.
And you're the only one in the studio.
The only one in the studio. So thank God I knew how to turn on and off the board. That's all I knew how to do. Turn it on and off. Well, I remember that as I was co-hosting, I would be watching the guy that was running the board. I'd watch him. And so I started thinking back to what he was doing. And I'm like, okay, I remember he would do this, and then he'd put this, and all of this is happening so fast in my mind. So I went on air, and I remember just being authentic with people and just saying, hey, guys, I'm so excited to be here, but I am by myself tonight. Like, I don't have anybody here, and I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but here we go. Like, help me out. I had so many people calling me and just literally telling me, I'm so excited. This is going to be so fun. You can do this. You can do this, and encouraging me. And we had a blast that whole evening. There was a lot of dead air, I can't believe how short Christmas songs are. They are so short that they didn't give me enough time to get the next song on.
Yeah, so, figure it out. Yeah.
And figuring it out, right? But hey, I figured it out. Like, I ended up then having my own afternoon drive time show. I had the midday show. I ended up having a really good radio career. So all of this is happening to me right before the 10 minutes before I'm going live on the air. And I said, okay, in both those circumstances, you were thrown in there and you figured it out. Take it little by little, chunks by chunks. Like, just focus on what you've got to say for this exact match, just the intro, and that's it. Focus on that. So that's exactly what I did. I looked at my cue card and looked at it and looked at it and studied and studied and studied it until I had to go up there, and I would read it off my mind, and I sounded horrible. I mean, I'm not trained.
I need to find a video of this.
You can find it online. It's so bad. This is it. The following contest is scheduled for one fall. I'm not kidding.
Just going into your brain being like, okay, the next word is
making their way to the ring. Like, it was really bad. Really, really bad.
That's amazing.
But I went home and I studied like crazy. And because I improved so much the second week, they could see such an improvement. And then from there, they actually offered it to me. Just in a few weeks' time, they offered me to sign the year's contract. And I told them, hey, you know what? I appreciate it, but I really want to see if I can handle this travel schedule. I want to see if I can even, do all of this. So it was a 2 to 3 month trial. And that's what I want to do, is just continue that trial. And then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
And that turned into 15 years.
Yeah. I was going to say 15 years later, how is the travel schedule? Like the thing is, like, you jump into this thing that you're not fully aware of in the first place. Like, yeah, I knew it when I was a kid, like Hulk Hogan and those guys, but then you get older and you don't really know it anymore. And from those time frames, like, I admire wrestling now as an adult because of the business that it is. Like, the fact that half the world makes fun of it, and yet it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, or whatever the case may be. That is amazing to me, right? But you see this massive change and you get thrown into the ring. And then all of a sudden, 15 years later, you're on the road pretty much all the time. Like, what was that like?
Well, that's why after 10 years, I actually left. I didn't think that I was going to come back. It wasn't like, I literally got married the week right after I left. Like, I was like, okay, that's it. I'm going to leave. I'm going to start a family. I'm going to get off the road. And that was because of a few things. I was tired because it was 52 weeks a year. You don't have vacations.
Yeah.
This isn't, where it's like football or baseball or something where there's seasons. There is no season. It's a 24/7, like, you're just week after week after week. And even though I didn't wrestle, that's the thing, is I had even more respect for the wrestlers, because I'm like, I'm beaten up and I don't even have to do their schedule and be, having to have matches where I'm beating my body up.
Yeah.
So I don't even know how they do it. I really don't. That's why I'm always like, they are the best athletes in the world. I'm not kidding. Because nobody runs the schedule that the WWE or wrestlers, even from outside the WWE, like, wrestlers run the most rigged schedule and put their bodies through so much that I have, like, the utmost respect for them. And they love it. It's the passion of giving everything they have that night. So I had left after 10 years. I got married, and then my husband and I started to try to start a family, and it wasn't happening. And it wasn't happening, and it wasn't happening. And then I found out we couldn't have kids. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Well, that definitely changes things.
Yeah.
So I remember going to a party for SummerSlam. I was invited from the WWE. We had a great, just always a great relationship. So they were here in LA, and I had moved to LA. And so they were like, yeah, you want to come by? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Seeing everybody again was awesome. And Kevin Dunn, who was he was my biggest cheerleader, really, from day one, the executive producer of the show. And I remember him saying, "You miss us yet? You want to come back?" And at the time, it was 6 months actually before I came back. But I was like, "I miss you guys, but I'm not ready to get back on the road yet." I was like, "Not yet." Well, then around the end of that was SummerSlam, so that was in August. But he always kept the door open. He's like, "Hey, let us know. So sure enough, by the end of November, we talked, and it was like, "Man, if you come back, we can have you on Tribute to the Troops, and it would just be awesome." And I was like, "You know what?" I talked to my husband. I said, since our plans have changed and since no kids are going to be happening right now, I think I really do kind of want to go back. Like, I miss the whole thing, and my body had recovered.
Yeah.
And so he's like, "I'm all for it." Like, that's the great thing about my husband, just been so supportive from day one.
Yeah, I mean, not to cut you off, but like when you think about what you go through, and I've talked to other couples in my life that have gone through that. Like, they want children, and all of a sudden they find out that they can't have children. That's a burden on its own to figure out and navigate as a couple. And then you go, "Hey, I'm going to leave again, and I'm going to be on the road pretty much all the time." And that's something you didn't navigate. You navigated as a couple, but not as a married couple when it becomes a different beast. So what's that like, and how can you relate these moments in your life of getting thrown in and figuring it out with that personal struggle?
With the personal struggle of not having children?
Yeah, not having children, and then uprooting what was your life? Yeah.
So yeah, when we moved, thank goodness. I mean, I met him. When I met him, I was already in wrestling. So, he knew my schedule. Yeah. And I'm one of those that I'm very giving, but I'm also very, very straightforward with with whoever I'm with. I'm always like, "Look, I am a Leo. I love working. I cannot be and I wasn't even necessarily going to have kids and then just be a stay-home mom. That's just not me." Yeah. A lot of respect to the women out there that do love that. That's great. And that's their choice, right? Everyone's got choices, and everyone's got their love in this world and what they want to do. But I knew that for me, I'm like, no, I have to have something, because I just very creative and I just love to work. But when that happened, we talked about it, and he just has so much trust, and I trust him. And I think that that's a big thing with whoever you're with. If they're starting to be like, he never once did he go, "Oh, but you're working with these like really big guys, and they're really good looking, and they're really, and what if you fall in love with them?" He knew the way that I felt about him. And I knew I never had to worry about him either. That goes both ways, because
that's a testament to you guys as a couple too. I mean, it's communicated in however you guys speak your love language. It's communicated in that way. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. We never brought jealousy. Like, jealousy was never a thing that we brought into the marriage at all, either way. Like, whether I'm gone on the road and then wondering, well, what is he doing at home? Like, that is not in our at all. We just trust. And so he just knew that, there's Skype, there's FaceTime, so we get along that way. He knew it wouldn't be forever, but he knew I had to do this. I was really getting super sad at the fact that, all right, I left, and I can't have the plan that we thought we were going to do with the children. That's not happening. And what exactly do I do? And I don't know. I just felt this calling, and that I'm not done with WWE. There's something still drawing me there. And I'm so grateful. And I'm just so happy that I went back. My time coming back was also very different than my first time there. I was a different person. I was more secure going back as well. And so it was a different experience. Yeah. And it was great. Really, really great.
That's awesome. And so let's talk about this really quick. So you sing, I mentioned it when I was talking in the intro and talking about you, I mentioned the national anthem, which is something you became known for. You do the WrestleMania national anthem, so on and so forth. And, Howard Finkel wasn't doing that. Like, it's not a ring announcer thing to sing the national anthem. How did that even come about? Were you just like, "Hey, I can sing, I'll do it"?
That was actually The Rock. I give all the credit to Dwayne. So he was one of the first, because we were doing a lot of the backstage vignettes for backstage interviews, segments for SmackDown. We became close friends. And we were talking one day. He found out that I sang. I don't remember how he found out I sang, but he found out. And by the way, I sang at my audition for the WWE, which I don't even remember.
Really?
I don't remember.
Is there a tape of this somewhere? Let's get it.
I think so. I know. I want to get it, right? But yeah, no, they said I sang a little something a cappella. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. I guess I don't remember because it was always part of me, right? It was singing. So, but anyway. He found out that I sang and we talked about it, and I knew that he liked to sing. So maybe I brought it up going, hey, you're singing, I sing. And so I remember that they actually played the national anthem instrumentals. They would play it at the live event shows. And for people that don't understand the difference, they used to call them house shows. Now they call them live events. And all that is that it's not televised. There's the televised events. They're obviously live too. And then there's the live events that are just for the arena. So Friday, like usually it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday were the live events just for the arenas. And then Monday was Monday Night Raw. Tuesday we used to tape SmackDown. Now, obviously SmackDown airs live. So that was usually the schedule of the week. Well, I didn't do all 300 plus dates show. I mean, when they hired me, they gave me the option. They asked me, do you want to be on the road 300 plus dates a year? Which, by the way, I think that was the other reason my marriage ended up working, when I went back and everything too. I told them I wanted balance, that I didn't mind going back. But I did not. I wanted to keep the same schedule that I had before, not do necessarily all the live events. I said, I'm okay with doing your international shows and doing the TV shows, but I don't want to be on the road 300 plus dates a year. That's a bit much on a marriage for me. That was for me. But anyway, so he found out, I think it was that I sang the national anthem. And then he said, you know what? We always play it at the live events, and you're going to be doing live events this weekend. I was subbing in. I think it was for Howard, because Howard was still doing those live events. And I was subbing in, and he goes, why don't we have you sing it? And I'm like, sure, I'll sing it. And then I went over there, and that was in February of 2000. So I wasn't there, not even 6 months.
It wasn't even that long, yeah.
Yeah, so, maybe 6 months, yeah. And so I started singing it there, and then I sang it Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the live events. Well, by Monday, Vince McMahon had heard about it from all the agents. They were like, oh my God, she was really, really good. And they were complimenting me, which was really nice. And so Vince was like, well, I hear all about this national anthem. I want to hear it tonight. And so that was in San Jose.
Was that your Vince impression, by the way?
Yeah.
There was definitely an inflection there. And I was like, that was an impression.
That was an impression. Not a full-fledged, but enough. I got to see it tonight. I can't do it. But you get the point. Yeah. So anyway, I actually performed it that night, and he goes, well, that was amazing. And so he goes, I want you to do that at every single show. So right before every show would air, I would sing the anthem 10 minutes before we went live on Raw. And then it turned into getting asked that year to sing it at WrestleMania. Wow. So I sang it at WrestleMania 2000. And then I sang 2 other WrestleManias. So the fact that I hold a record for singing the most WrestleManias, it blows my mind. Yeah. Blows my mind. And then I sang it in Iraq, Afghanistan. And then I did I'll never forget, I did the La Borinqueña was the Puerto Rican national anthem. And that's when Vince, and that's obviously all in Spanish. And that's when Vince goes, oh my gosh, I want to do this Spanish record on you. And so I did a whole Spanish record with the company. Yeah, it was really cool how I got to incorporate my love of music and singing into wrestling. And that's why I always say to people, I think back to my agent who said, go, you never know. It's so true. You never know what's going to happen. But I got to travel the world and make amazing friendships. And yeah, to this day, I thank Dwayne for actually suggesting that to the producers and having me sing, because he changed such a course and was able to early on incorporate my love of music within wrestling. And who would have thought?
Yeah. And I love that because, that's something I talk about a lot is like, you just have to take that first step. You have to go. Because otherwise you're going to miss a ton of stuff. Like if I didn't start this podcast 2.5 years ago, my life would be insanely different. I'd be miserable. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be friends with the people I'm friends with. It's just a different world. Right. And it's so true. And you don't ever know where you're going to end up. So let's talk about where you ended up, which is your incredible podcast, Chasing Glory, which I was able to sample some of it before we hopped on this call, and you do a phenomenal job. Obviously a lot of wrestlers, but you also get people like Jay Shetty and Amy Purdy, which I know my audience loves those individuals.
Yes.
So how did that even come about? Like, why were you like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to try this podcast thing.
Well, it was wild because my dad actually got really, really sick, and he came and lived with my husband and I as he was trying to get treated at City of Hope here in LA. So my mother and him moved from South Carolina with us. And obviously it was supposed to be temporary. Like we were hoping he would get well, and then they'd move back to South Carolina, which they loved. But unfortunately, I found out in July of 2016 that the bladder cancer had just been too much. And we were given the news. He had 2 weeks. My sister and I were given the news. He had 2 weeks to 3 months to live, which is the hardest thing you can ever hear. I was in denial. I was like, no, he's going to beat this. But I knew that I couldn't continue to be on the road with WWE. So, and they were great. They were so supportive. The company was just unbelievable, and anything we can do. And Stephanie was incredible. And of course, she can identify. She loves her dad so much and is so close to him. And so and she knew my dad too. She knew him through all those years. So to, not have breakdowns. Because I'd be at work and then I'd just be thinking about him, and I broke down. I remember one time I was at ringside and I was there for a rehearsal, and I looked at Triple H and I was like, I'm sorry, I just can't keep it together. I need to go to the locker room and I need to just cry this out. He's like, go, just be, and gave me this huge hug, and he goes, it's okay. So they were just extremely supportive during that time. But when I left, so that was like I said, in July. So my dad, as I'm taking care of him and all, he started telling me, he's like, Lil, I don't want you just to turn into my caretaker. Like, you've given away so much. And he felt so bad that I left WWE. And it's like, please, you gotta do something. What's your next chapter? Well, I started talking to Kevin Undergaro, who was just so phenomenal, him and Maria Menounos. And I had done some things over at AfterBuzz before. Mm-hmm. And I had talked to him about this concept that I had in 2004. I actually gave this was before Total Divas, all of this. I had actually gave this concept presented it to my executive producer, Kevin Dunn, who I mentioned earlier. And I said, I really, really, really would love to do some in-depth interviews with the females that are here. They have these crazy, incredible human interest stories, what they've endured in their lives. Is it possible if I can interview them? Well, at the time, there was no WWE network. There was none of this opportunity that there is now to have a show like that. Yeah. So it pretty much didn't go anywhere. The idea was there, and I was going to call it Diva Chat, by the way. I even had this whole proposal.
That name wouldn't fly now. Not
What's
Divas
that?
Anymore.
No, it's not, but they still have Total Divas, the show, right?
That is true. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's wild how I was like, Diva Chat. But anyway, so I took that concept and like, okay, I actually want to do this, but I don't want to do just the females. I did start with the females though, because I wanted to give them a platform. Mm-hmm. At the time, they were still having just one match. They still weren't having the voice that they have now. And so I was like, okay, if I'm the first female from wrestling to have her own podcast, I want to start it with the females. Brie Bella was my very, very first guest. I was so excited. And what ended up happening is everybody started sharing all of these stories that they never had shared before, and all of these struggles that they'd gone through, and between eating disorders or being abused or molested or this and that. And I'm like, whoa, this is insane what's happening, but so powerful, so powerful. My audience started eating up. They're like, wow, this isn't just a wrestling podcast. This is unbelievable. Because I never really ask, like, what's your favorite match? Or because I think that there is an audience for that. Absolutely. And I think there's a podcast for that. Absolutely. But I was like, what can I do different that the other wrestling podcasts aren't really doing? And I just said, I'm just going to take that concept from 2004 and just be me. I love interviewing people. I love getting their stories. I said, let me just do that and let's see what happens, because I want people to know that these superstars, A, have not made it overnight. B, it hasn't been an easy road for them, So that's the main thing. I'm like, how can I, take this and do that? And it kind of just formed on its own because of the relationships that I have with them too. And from there, I started interviewing the guys, and the guys were like, wow, this is like an interview I've never had. Like, I've never been able to tell my story. And I think maybe too, because they were speaking to a female, they felt like they could actually be a little bit more vulnerable with me. Yeah. Also, I don't give any judgment, no judgment whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, and if they go on like Jericho's show or Stone Cold's, it's like they talk shop. They're just a bunch of boys.
Got it.
Yeah.
You got it. They're going to be on there and they'll be like, yeah, we'll do this.
I remember that time that we drank. And by the way, real side note, real quick, Jericho I was listening to his episode one day. I don't even remember who he was talking to, but he told this story about him and John Cena. It's one of the funniest stories ever. I'll tell you about it afterwards. It's hilarious.
Okay. All right. So anyway, it just became something where I'm like, this is pretty cool. So that's why I tag it Real, Raw, Inspiring, because it always ends up being so inspiring hearing all the stories. And what's happened is the fans, like when Mickie James came out and talked about how she'd been molested, all of a sudden the fans were like, oh my God, I've been molested. I thought I had to hide, because she said, I don't want to hide anymore. This, I found out, this is not my fault. This is something that happened to me, but I'm tired of acting like it's something that I should be ashamed of. I'm like, how beautiful, how powerful. And then the fans actually wrote in like, I've been hiding this for so long. You've given me permission not to be ashamed of it anymore. Aleister Black, one of my latest ones, amazing, and just really talked about how at 9 years old, he was exposed to cult-like things and government conspiracies and what that has done and how that has affected his mind and the fear that he lives with daily and the mental illness that he has. He goes, I'm glad that I'm able to talk about this. Well, again, fans wrote in, they're like, oh my Lord, somebody that I can identify with, somebody that is going through the same thing. I thought I was alone. And I think more than anything, chasing glory is making people realize they're not alone. And they're getting to understand the superstars in such a different way that they're actually pulling for them even more. I mean, they identify with them in a whole different level. Ember Moon, when she first came and she talked about how badly she was bullied at school. And now to see how badly she was bullied and then all that kept her alive. Like she literally admits on my podcast, she goes, wow, I never talked about that before. She contemplated actually committing suicide because she was bullied so badly. But she loved Monday Night Raw and she loved SmackDown so much that at the time, obviously they aired on Monday and Thursday. And she said Monday would come around and I was so excited to watch Thursday that it kept me alive from Monday to Thursday. And then Thursday would come around and I was so excited to see what would happen on Monday that everything that I endured from then to the next episode kept me alive.
That's amazing.
Right? And now she's actually working for the company.
Which is crazy. Yeah.
That is
crazy.
She got her dream, but now you go, man, I'm so happy for her. And as a fan, you want to pull for her. You want to pull for her to do well. So I tell people, even though you might not be a wrestling fan, these episodes they're not about wrestling. This is not a wrestling show. That's why I sprinkle in other people like Jay Shetty and Amy and J.R. Martinez and some of these people from the outside that I find that are so fascinating that I want to share their story. But this is literally just people having their experiences. They share their experiences, their dreams, and how they accomplish their dreams. And that can be applied to anything in your life.
Yeah. And like you said, like even if you're not a wrestling fan and you hear people that have reached a level in which we hold individuals up on a pedestal and we admire them, or somebody does, you hear those stories and it can make you flip that switch and say, I can do something great too. Just because that bad thing happened to me as well doesn't mean that's my story. That's not it. And so, I mean, it truly seems as if you're changing the world with your show, and that's incredible.
Thank you.
And I think that's kind of what I look at with my show too. Like I share these stories and I get a lot of people that say, I've never shared this before. Like we talked about Ed Milet before, and he shared a crazy story with me that he's like, I've actually never shared this publicly. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, if the right person hears this at the right time, it'll save their life. And that's all that matters to me. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the business. It's that moment. Right. So thank you so much for doing that and being that person that can kind of navigate those conversations.
Oh my God. This has been good for me too. This has been a great transition because I love the company so much. And when I left, it was so, emotional because it was forced, on me, even though I totally understood. My dad comes first, but it's been so wonderful that I could still have a connection with WWE, and I still go back every now and then, do a special announcement for whatever they want. Evolution, I came back. It was great. WrestleMania, announcing the first ever women's battle royal. All these moments it's so special. But then getting to do these intimate conversations with people I worked with for so long and didn't know their story. That's where I'm like, wow. I mean, I literally worked with you for 15 years and didn't know any of this. It tells me, how much do we really know of people and our friends? Do we ask? Sometimes I think we should have these conversations with friends. Tell me more about the way that you grew up. Yeah. What did you endure? And that way you can understand the person better. What I also will say from that, there are times, like Alistair kept saying, he goes, sometimes I don't understand maybe the people that I work with, or maybe they just don't understand me. And there's literally, I won't even mention who it was, but I remember there was a particular wrestler who actually said, Lil, I want you to know that I listened to Alistair Black's interview. And before I listened to the interview, I just thought he was just kind of aloof and just maybe thought he was better than us or this or that. And he goes, I just had this opinion. He goes, after I listened to it, I went, wow, I get it. And now I feel like I can have an entire relationship with him based on how well I know and what he's endured.
Yes.
And that's magical.
It is. I mean, I just ran, I did a thing at my friend's mastermind down in DC this last weekend, and I talked about storytelling, and I talked about the power of sharing your story. And I didn't think about it from a connection standpoint. I thought of it as you could help somebody by sharing your story. But when you think about these people that whoever that wrestler was that reached out to you, it wasn't about helping that person. It was just about, I can now be open and I see a lot more. And so you're more forgiving. Yeah. I think, when you think about bullying, you brought that up too. You think about bullying, I think that if you understand somebody else's story, especially the bully story, I think that it creates a whole different scenario. So you're 100% right. And, you'd also mentioned the podcast is great for you too. Yeah. And so my mom passed away 5 months before I launched my podcast. And
God. Similar story. It's kind of similar around the same time. Wow. Sorry to hear about your loss though.
No, yeah. Thank you. And it was one of those things. It was supposed to be a business podcast, and it became about personal stories. It became about the journey. It became about self-love. And I feel like if it weren't for the podcast, I'd be in a much different space emotionally. I don't think I would ever take in my life. I've never thought that. But definitely it's become a guiding light for me. And I tell people all the time, if you listen to my show, all of a sudden I'll have a bunch of relationship experts on and then a bunch of health experts on, because I need to learn this stuff. I need to get better. So it's been my journey, through the last 2.5 years of becoming hopefully a better person. Right. So it's been just absolutely crazy. And it's interesting that we share that. But I wrap up all these episodes with 5 rapid fire questions. But before we get there, first, is there anything else you want to add? And then where do people find you? Where do they get your podcast? All the good stuff.
Well, they get the podcast. Luckily, I even have my own podcast app. I'm so excited.
That's awesome.
So you can download Chasing Glory podcast app, and then you can also obviously get it on Apple, on iHeartRadio, on Spotify, on Spreaker. I mean, we're pretty much everywhere that you can get your podcast. So I definitely, and youtube.com/Lilian Garcia. And Lilian is spelled with 1 L in the middle, by the way. So you can find me at Lilian Garcia on Instagram and Twitter, and Lilian Garcia official fan page on Facebook. And then you can also follow Chasing Glory by going to Instagram, Chasing Glory Podcast, and follow it that way. So Just as I always say, we're changing the world, hopefully one person at a time. And I tell people just spread the word because, it's this show is way bigger than me. I'm just the vehicle, but I love that people are embracing it as much as they are and, sharing their chasing glory story.
I love it. So getting the 5 rapid fire questions. Some are fun. Some are serious. I just ask you this. Answer within one word or at the most one sentence. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right,
ready.
The first one is, and I don't know if you can answer this since you're friends with these people, but it was, who's your favorite wrestler of all time?
Not fair.
I knew I was going to get that answer. I was like, damn. I was like, okay, we got to switch it up.
Or I can do this. All of the above.
Yeah, all of them. Do you have a favorite match of all time?
Oh, God. Impossible.
That's fair.
Impossible.
First time ever in the rapid fire questions that one is not answered. We're going to move on to the next one. What is
politically correct.
What is one trait that all of your friends must have? It's non-negotiable.
Authentic.
Love it. If you could have dinner with one person, living or dead, who would it be?
Oh, one person. Jeez. Oh my gosh. I've never even thought about that. Pass for right now.
All right. At the end of your life, if you could only be remembered for one sentence, what would it be?
She inspired many, was fun to be around, was authentic, loving, and really lived life to the fullest.
I love it. So obviously this podcast is called the Growth Now Movement. So I wrap up every single episode with this one question, and that is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
I've had several, actually. But I think that, and I know this is rapid fire, and
No, you're good. Take as much time as you want.
But I believe in personal growth seminars. I believe in personal growth masterminds. If I would have known how to get to where I am now, which I still know I got so much growing to do, but if I would have known how to get here without the seminars, without the masterminds, I would have done it way earlier. But obviously, I didn't have the tools, and that's what they give you. And so I think that doing these courses is what's helped me grow the fastest.
I love that. And so you guys, to my audience, you guys heard her say that. So make sure you get your tickets to Growth Now Movement Live, which is coming up in May, which is a personal development seminar that I've put together with incredible speakers. So make sure you guys grab tickets because I do believe in that as well. Once I figured out that if you surround yourself with the right people and learn from the right people, it shoots you through the roof. Like, it's a crazy thing.
If you knew how to do it before, then you would have done it. But obviously we don't. We need each other. We need each other to grow. And by the way, if I could have, seriously, I know this is going to come out of left field, but she comes into my mind. I would love to have a one-on-one, like you said, dinner with Pat Benatar. So Pat Benatar has been someone that I would sing all her songs. I mean, endless hours of practicing her songs. I went to go see her perform. I was the one in the audience with tears and screaming, and I wanted to see her backstage so badly. And she just impacted me as a singer, and that I want to know from her, because I haven't been able to get the singing into my life as much as I thought I wanted it, or I really felt like, no, it's got to be the number one thing. It's got to be the number one thing. Sometimes I'm wondering, am I missing out by not having it be my number one thing? Like, I'm still struggling with that, even though I'm fulfilled in so many other ways. But I would love to sit down with her and go, how's your life? What has your journey been, right? What has your life been? Because you have been able to sing and have that be the forefront of your life. And her book, she struggled a lot.
Yeah.
So, I think it would be almost like I'd love to have her and Lady Gaga and Katy Perry and just sit down and go, are you guys happy? Because you're doing this 24/7 more than I've been able to do as far as your 24/7 job. Are you guys, is this fulfilling? Is this glory that you've chased worth it?
Yeah.
That I really would love to know.
I love that. I love that answer. Lilian, this has been a phenomenal conversation. Thank you so much for doing everything that you're doing to truly change the world. And just thank you for being you and taking the time out.
Thank you. This has been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Growth Now movement. This is how you can really help me out. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff. And let's grow this movement to epic heights. And it's all going to be because of you guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next week.